One of the hallmarks of effective leaders and highly emotionally intelligent folks, especially on the social skills side of the ledger, is how they deal with conflict. And in fact, not only how they deal with conflict, but, in some cases, how they promote conflict. We'll talk about that a bit more in just a second. First of all, how you manage conflict, like many of these particular skills on the social skill side of emotional intelligence, is really going to be a bellwether and indicator to your team in how they should manage conflict. So looking at you and how you deal with conflicting situations, whether you personalize it, whether you hold on to grudges, whether you openly try to resolve conflict, whether you run away from conflict, all of those things are going to tell your team that's how they should deal with conflict as well. So let's talk a little bit about how leaders need to deal in conflict. First and foremost, you need to have the resilience and skin thickness not to take things personally. When somebody says, and you, and you, and your, and it's not about you. You got to take a step back. It's about a thing, not about the core of you that is a person. So it's not a personal attack, even though it might be framed like that, even though folks might come at you in that regard. You need to realize it's about a thing, and you need to almost kind of have an out-of-body experience related to that to deal with it effectively. You need to get through the cloud of emotion and work on the specific issues. Stay away from getting involved in a personal attack kind of mode. And then, unfortunately what happens, many times when we feel attacked personally, then we attack back. And we ratchet that up again and ratchet it up again. And I got to tell you, there is no easy end to those kind of situations. Look at and boil down to the issues involved and avoid retaliating when you think or when it sounds like it's a personal assault on you. One of the greatest skills I can ever encourage somebody or coach somebody to utilize is when you feel a little bit hurt or threatened or attacked and a conflict is kind of brewing, stay off your keyboard. Get away from your phone and don't respond back. Spend some time thinking, cooling down, and then go through and deal with and attack the issues. Now, please note that there are really two very, very specific types of conflict that leaders have to deal with. The one is kind of an interpersonal conflict. That is, that person just, for whatever reason, plain and simply doesn't like you, doesn't want to deal with you, and, constantly wants to fuss and fight with you a little bit. The other type is issue-based conflict. And a lot of the interpersonal conflict starts as issue-based conflict and then ratchets up to that interpersonal level when we don't recognize the particular issues involved. Issue-based conflict, and let me make this very, very clear. Issue-based conflict is extraordinarily healthy for individual leaders and for organizations as a whole. In fact, and we'll talk about this a little bit down the road, all innovation begins with some issue-based conflict. Somebody raises their hand and says, you know what, we can do this better. We can do this a different way. That is the start and the impetus of issue-based conflict. Now, what we have to do is make sure that stays on rail, that we're talking about an issue and not the owner of that particular issue. A couple of things for you to consider. When you bring up an issue or something that could be done better, please remember, are you talking to somebody that is the manager of that process, or are you talking to somebody that is the architect of that process? Because if you're talking to somebody that manages that process, their personal attachment to it is not going to be as strong as the person that is the architect of that process. So, for example, if you're talking to somebody that authored a particular policy and you say, you know what, we really need to change this and could do it better, you probably need to take a different approach because they're going to feel attacked because they're the ones that wrote that. They're the author of that particular policy or approach. So think about those things when you begin working on issue-based conflict. Now, I mentioned early on that effective leaders sometimes will even promote some conflict. And indeed they do. Now, that's not to say that leaders want fighting and chaos and rumbling and all that going on in their working environment. They don't. but they want people to challenge the status quo and the paradigms that they're operating in. And sometimes to do that, they'll plant little pieces of conflict that can be managed as issue-based conflict moving forward in order to progress the organization and to stimulate dialogue. Again, the key things today is being a good example and a good role model of how you deal with conflict, not personalizing conflict and looking at it as an attack, and making sure that you manage the conflict as issue-based and never letting it cross over into interpersonal conflict.